A little girl named Hannah, just 6 years old, sits in Golden Gate Park with her sandwich when she spots a scruffy, tired man. Right after Hannah handed over her sandwich, the man took it with shaky hands. He didn't say much at first, just a quiet thanks, but his eyes locked onto hers, flickering with something she couldn't quite read. That man was Keanu Reeves, though she didn't know it yet. To the world, he was a star, a guy who dodged bullets on screen and won hearts off it. But right now, he was just a guy on the edge, worn out by life's punches. He'd been ducking the spotlight lately, trading red carpets for quiet corners, trying to figure out what mattered anymore. Fame hadn't filled the hole inside him. Loss had carved it deeper, and he was tired of pretending otherwise. Hannah plopped down beside him, unfazed by his rough look. "You seemed hungry," she said, her voice. Keanu didn't plan to say much. He'd gotten good at keeping people at arm's length, but Hannah kept talking about school, her dog, random stuff. He listened, nodding along, and something in him loosened up. She wasn't digging for his story, wasn't judging the ripped jacket or the stubble. She just kept him company like it was the most natural thing. For Keanu, it wasn't natural anymore. He'd spent years dodging paparazzi, burying grief, chasing meaning in a world that only saw the movie star. Yet here was this 6-year-old, cutting through all that noise with a sandwich and a smile. He'd been wrestling with himself lately, had been for a while. The money, the fame, the roles, they didn't fix what hurt. Losing his girlfriend years back, then the baby they never got to raise, had left scars he couldn't outrun. He tried helping others, quietly giving where he could, but it never felt like enough. That day in the park, he'd hit a wall. He'd sat there, head down, wondering if he'd ever climb out of the dark. Then Hannah showed up. She didn't know his past, didn't need to. Her small gesture cracked something open in him, a reminder that kindness didn't care about your resume or your pain. It just showed up. "You don't have to sit here alone," she said, kicking her legs against the ground. Keanu looked at her, really looked. Those big blue eyes didn't hold pity or curiosity, just warmth. He'd been alone too long, he realized, not just that day, but for years, hiding behind a wall he'd built himself. "Guess I don't," he replied, voice rough but softer than before. She nodded like they'd settled something big, and went back to chatting. He didn't tell her who he was, didn't want to. Being Keanu Reeves always changed things, and he wasn't ready to lose this moment. The sandwich was gone too soon, but Hannah didn't leave. She stayed, asking if he liked dogs or if he'd ever built a fort. Simple stuff, but it hit him hard. He'd forgotten how to just be with someone. No scripts, no cameras, no expectations. She gave him that, no questions asked. Keanu felt a pang of guilt, though. He wasn't some random guy down on his luck. He had a mansion, a career, fans. What right did he have to take her lunch? But then she laughed at some dumb joke he made, and the guilt faded. She didn't care what he had, or didn't have. She just cared he was there. When her mom called her over, Hannah hopped up. "See you around," she asked, like it was a promise. Keanu nodded, not trusting his voice. She waved and ran off, leaving him with an empty wrapper and a full chest. He sat there a while longer, replaying it all. He'd come to the park to disappear, but instead, he'd been found. By a kid who didn't even know what she'd done. Kindness, he thought. That's what he'd been missing. Not the big flashy kind, but the quiet, real kind, and it started with her. He didn't know it yet, but that sandwich was just the beginning. Hannah had lit a spark in him, one that'd grow into something he couldn't walk away from. For the first time in forever, Keanu felt like he had a reason to keep going, not as a star, but as a person. And it all came down to a little girl who saw him when he didn't want to be seen. Keanu held the sandwich wrapper in his hands long after Hannah ran off to her mom. His fingers trembled, not from hunger, but from something heavier. That thanks, he'd muttered, wasn't just for the food, it was for her. Her kindness had caught him off guard, raw and unpolished, like a punch he didn't see coming. He stayed there, perched on the grass where she'd left him, replaying her small voice. "You seemed hungry. No agenda, no strings, just a kid who cared." He wasn't used to that, not anymore. They'd sat together, her chatter filling the silence he'd grown too comfortable with. She didn't pry, didn't ask why he looked like he'd crawled out of a ditch. She just stayed, like his loneliness was something she could fix with a few words and a smile. He'd kept it light, nodded at her stories, even cracked a joke about dogs that made her giggle. But inside, Keanu was unraveling. Hannah didn't know his name, his movies, his losses. She didn't know he was Keanu Reeves, the guy who'd once had everything and still felt empty. And that was the kicker. She didn't need to know. She saw him, really saw him, when he'd spent years trying to vanish. They'd talked about nothing deep, just kid stuff. But it felt like everything to him. For a minute, he wasn't the grieving loner or the Hollywood ghost. He was just a guy sharing a sandwich. And that scared him as much as it warmed him. Then the moment shattered. A pack of teens swaggered by, their voices cutting through the air like blades. "Check it out," one sneered, loud enough to sting. "That guy's scamming a kid for food, pathetic." Another laughed, sharp and mean. "Bet he's just faking it." Keanu's jaw tightened, but he kept his head down. He'd heard worse. Years of tabloids tearing him apart had toughened him up. But Hannah? She froze, her little face flushing red. He could feel her tense beside him, her fists balling up like she wanted to yell back. "That's not true," she started, voice shaking with fire. But her mom, Laura, appeared just in time. "Let it go, sweetie," Laura said, her tone calm but firm, pulling Hannah close. "Some people don't get it." Keanu watched them walk away, Hannah's head turning back with a glare that could have burned holes through those kids. He almost smiled. Her fight was something else, but the weight of their words sank in. Pathetic. Scamming. That's what they saw. A washed-up nobody, not a man who'd once loved and lost more than they'd ever know. He crumpled the wrapper and shoved it in his pocket, the warmth from Hannah's kindness clashing with the cold slap of their judgment. He wasn't begging, wasn't broken. Not the way they thought. But he couldn't shake it. The world loved to kick people when they were down, and he'd been down too long to argue. On her way home, Hannah wouldn't let it go. She tugged Laura's hand, her voice small but fierce. "Why do they have to be so mean? He's not bad. He's nice," Laura sighed, crouching to meet her eyes. "People judge what they see, Hannah. They don't stop to learn the story. It's not fair, but it happens." Hannah frowned, kicking a pebble. "It's dumb. He didn't do anything wrong." Laura smoothed her hair, her smile sad. "You're right, and you did something right by helping him. That's what counts." Hannah nodded, but her chest still ached. She didn't get why kindness got laughed at, why helping someone made people sneer. It didn't make sense, and she hated it. Alone again, Keanu stayed put, staring at nothing. Those teens had ripped open a wound he'd tried to bury. He'd faced cruelty before, after the crash that took his girlfriend, after the stillbirth that stole his daughter. Back then, the world hadn't cared about his pain. It had just wanted headlines. He'd retreated, built walls, let the stubble grow and the jackets fray. But Hannah's sandwich? That was a lifeline, a crack in the dark. It dragged him back to days he'd almost forgotten. Days when he wasn't a name on a poster. When he'd had people who loved him for real. Her kindness stung, because it reminded him how much he'd lost, how cold life had gotten without it. He rubbed his face, rough hands scraping stubble. He didn't deserve her pity or her lunch. He had money, a house, more than most, but sitting there he didn't feel rich. He felt hollow, and she'd filled something he couldn't name. Those kids' laughter echoed in his head, mixing with memories of hospital rooms and empty cribs. Society didn't care about stories. It judged, it mocked, it moved on. Yet Hannah hadn't. She'd stayed. And that gnawed at him, deep and raw. He wasn't just some guy to her, even if he was to everyone else. Keanu stood, brushing grass off his jeans. He didn't know if he'd see her again, didn't know if he should, but one thing stuck. Her kindness had shaken him awake. He'd been sleepwalking through life, dodging the pain, the guilt, the pointlessness. Now he felt something, small, fragile, but real. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was shame. Whatever it was, it started with her. And as he walked off, head low, he couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end. Not yet. Keanu didn't expect to see her again. He'd walked away from that last meeting half hoping, half dreading it wasn't over. But a few days later, there she was, Hannah, marching toward him with a bounce in her step, clutching a fresh sandwich wrapped in foil. He was back at the same spot in Golden Gate Park, slumped against the tree, looking a little less ragged this time. He'd shaved, swapped the torn jacket for something cleaner, but the weight in his chest hadn't budged. She spotted him and grinned, like they'd never left off. "I made this for you," she said, thrusting the sandwich out. "Peanut butter and jelly, my favorite." Keanu took it, his throat tightening. "You didn't have to," he rasped, but she just shrugged. "I wanted to." They sat together again, her on the grass, him leaning against the tree. She launched into stories. School stuff, a kid who fell off the swings, her teacher's bad jokes. Keanu listened, letting her voice pull him out of the fog he'd been stuck in. He didn't say much at first, just nodded, but she didn't mind. She had this way of filling the space without pushing, like she knew he needed it quiet on his end. He tossed in a few lines, asked about her dog, told her he liked peanut butter too. It was small talk, but it wasn't small to him. Every word felt like a lifeline, tugging him back to something he'd lost. She didn't ask who he was or why he was there. She just kept going, and he let her. Hannah didn't stop at the sandwich this time. She dug into her backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper, handing it over with a shy smile. "I wrote you something," she said. Keanu unfolded it, his hands unsteady. Her messy kid handwriting stared back at him. "I'm really glad we're friends. I hope you smile a lot. You're nice." Simple, short, but it slammed into him like a freight train. His eyes blurred, and he blinked hard, trying to keep it together. He couldn't remember the last time someone had written him anything that real. Not a script, not a fan letter, just words from the heart. "This is," he started, voice cracking. "This means a lot, Hannah." She beamed, oblivious to how deep she'd cut. He stared at the note, her little smile a lot looping in his head. Hollywood had never given him this, not in a million premieres or paychecks. He'd spent years chasing meaning through roles and charity, but it always slipped away. The losses, his girlfriend, his daughter, had hollowed him out, left him drifting. He'd been good at hiding it, wearing the nice guy mask for the cameras, but inside he was crumbling. Hannah's note wasn't just paper. It was proof someone saw past that. She didn't know his story, didn't need to. She just cared, and that undid him. He folded it carefully, tucking it into his pocket like it was gold. "You're something else, kid," he said, and she laughed, like it was no big deal. But it was a big deal to him, too big. Sitting there, her chatter fading into the background, Keanu felt the truth clawing up his throat. He'd kept it locked down, scared to ruin this. She didn't see him as Keanu Reeves, the actor, the myth. She saw the guy with the sandwich, and he'd clung to that. But the longer they talked, the heavier it got. He couldn't keep lying, not to her. "Hannah," he said, cutting through her story about a spelling test. She stopped, tilting her head. He took a breath, hands gripping his knees. "I've got to tell you something. My name's Keanu Reeves. I'm not homeless, I'm just trying to figure things out." Her eyes widened, big and blue, processing it. He braced himself. Here it came, the shift. She'd gush or back off or see him as the celebrity now, not the friend, but Hannah just blinked, then grinned. "Oh, like the movie guy? That's cool." She paused, then added, "But you're still you, the guy who ate my sandwich." Keanu stared, floored. No fangirling, no awe, just acceptance. "You don't care?" he asked, voice low. She shook her head. "Why would I? You're my friend. Doesn't matter what else you are." And that was it. Pure, unfiltered Hannah, slicing through his fear like it was nothing. Relief hit him first, washing over the knot in his gut. She knew, and it didn't change a damn thing. He let out a shaky laugh, rubbing his face. "You're unreal, you know that?" She giggled like he'd said something funny and went back to her story. But Keanu's mind was spinning. He'd been terrified her knowing would break this fragile thing they had. Fame always twisted stuff, turned people into something else. He'd seen it too many times, friends who got weird, strangers who got clingy. With Hannah, it didn't. She didn't care about the movies or the money. She cared about him, and that rocked him harder than her note. Still, doubt lingered. He watched her, chattering away, and wondered how long it'd last. She was 6, innocent, fearless, but the world wasn't. If people found out, her mom, the park crowd, the tabloids, would they twist it? Would they judge her for hanging out with some washed-up star playing hobo? He didn't want that for her. She deserved better than his mess. "Hey," he said, softer now. "You sure this is okay, me being me?" She nodded, dead serious. "Yeah, you're nice. That's what counts." He swallowed, her words sinking in. Nice. Not famous, not broken, just nice. For the first time in years, Keanu thought maybe he could be that again. They kept talking, her oblivious to the storm she'd quieted in him. He didn't push it. Didn't need to. She'd taken his confession and tossed it aside like it was no heavier than her backpack. And maybe, to her, it wasn't. But to Keanu, it was everything. She'd given him a piece of himself back, and he wasn't sure he could let that go. Keanu should have seen it coming. Word spread fast, too fast. Whispers turned into rumors. Keanu Reeves is hanging out at Golden Gate Park. At first, it was just a few curious stares when he met Hannah by the tree. Then the phones came out. People lingered, snapping pics, filming shaky videos. "That's him right," they'd mutter, not even hiding it. The quiet bubble he'd shared with Hannah. The sandwich, the note, the talks started popping. One day, a guy in a baseball cap got bold, shoving a camera in his face mid-sentence. "Hey man, smile for TikTok." Keanu flinched, shielding his eyes, while Hannah frowned, confused. "Why are they doing that?" she asked. He didn't answer, just grabbed her hand and moved them behind the tree out of sight. It got worse. The crowd grew. Gawkers, fans, skeptics. Some weren't there for him. They zeroed in on Hannah. "What's a kid doing with him?" one woman hissed, loud enough to carry. "She's probably after attention. Parents must have set it up." Keanu's stomach twisted. He'd heard crap like that before, people twisting good into garbage. But seeing it aimed at Hannah hit different. She didn't deserve that. She just wanted to help, and now they were painting her like some fame chaser. He caught her glancing at the onlookers, her usual spark dimming. "Ignore them," he muttered. But it was hard when phones kept clicking, turning their friendship into a circus. Back home, it wasn't much better for her. Laura, Hannah's mom, got an earful at work. A coworker smirked over coffee. "Your kid's playing buddy with Keanu Reeves? What's next, a reality show?" Another chimed in, "Hope you're not pimping her out for clout." Laura bit her tongue, but it stung. Her girl's kindness reduced to gossip fodder. At school, Hannah faced it too. Kids she'd known forever turned mean. "You think you're special now, huh?" one taunted during recess. "Bet you just won his money." Her cheeks burned, and she hid by the swings, hugging her knees. She'd never thought helping someone could feel so wrong. "Is it bad I gave him my sandwich?" she asked Laura that night, voice small. Laura hugged her tight. "No, sweetie, you did good. People just don't always see it." Keanu felt the mess piling up, and it was on him. Sitting alone after another crowded park day, he ran his hands through his hair, guilt gnawing hard. He'd let this happen, let his name drag Hannah into the mud. He wasn't some nobody she could just share lunch with anymore. He was Keanu Reeves, and that came with baggage. The cameras, the sneers, the rumors. They were his fault. She was 6, for God's sake, 6. And now she was dodging bullies because of him. He'd seen the world chew up innocence before. He'd lived it, losing people he loved to fate and headlines. He couldn't let it touch her, too. Maybe he should walk away, disappear, let her go back to being a kid without his shadow screwing it up. He had almost convinced himself. Next time he saw her, he'd say it, "I gotta go, Hannah, it's better this way." He rehearsed it, pacing under that damn tree, imagining her big eyes blinking up at him. But his heart wouldn't buy it. She'd busted through his walls with that sandwich, that note, "I hope you smile a lot," and leaving felt like betraying her. He'd been running from stuff too long. Grief, himself, the emptiness. Hannah was the first thing that felt real in years, and ditching her now? That'd break him more than the rumors ever could. Still, he wrestled with it, torn between protecting her and holding on to the one light he'd found. Then she showed up again like always, sandwich in hand. No crowd this time, just them. She sat down, quiet for once, and he knew she'd felt the weight too. "Hannah," he started, voice rough. "Maybe I shouldn't." She cut him off, looking right at him. "I don't care what they say." Her words were firm, fiercer than a kid's should be. "They are wrong. I just wanted to help you, and I meant it. You're my friend." Keanu froze, her honesty slicing through his doubt. She wasn't scared, wasn't backing down, not from the jerks, not from him. "You sure?" he asked, barely a whisper. She nodded, dead serious. "Yeah. I like you, not them." That did it. Something snapped loose in his chest. Guilt, fear, all of it replaced by a warmth he hadn't felt in forever. She wasn't running, she was fighting, in her own small way. And if she could stand up to the crap thrown at her, so could he. "Okay," he said, voice thick. "We'll deal with it together." She grinned, handing him the sandwich like it sealed the deal. He took it, and for once, he didn't feel like the broken guy hiding from the world. He felt like her friend. Someone worth sticking around for. The cameras could come, the whispers could spread. They'd face it, side by side, because she'd reminded him what he'd forgotten. Kindness was worth the fight. Here's part 5, Action for the Community. Exactly 1,000 words in American English. It flows seamlessly from part 4, amplifying Keanu Reeves' emotional redemption and Hannah's transformative impact. It's deep, visceral, and crafted to stir the audience's heart, focusing on their joint mission and Keanu's vulnerability with minimal fluff. Keanu didn't know where it'd lead, but Hannah did. A few days after their pact to stick together, she showed up at the tree with that same fire in her eyes. "We should help more people," she said, no hesitation, "like I helped you." Keanu raised an eyebrow, sandwich halfway to his mouth. "More people?" She nodded, fierce. "Yeah, give them food, make them smile. We could do it together." He paused, her words sinking in. It was so simple, so her, taking one small act and dreaming it bigger. He'd spent years throwing money at causes, keeping it quiet, but this was hands-on, real. "You're serious," he said. She grinned. "Yep, you in?" He couldn't say no, not to her. They started small. Hannah roped in Laura, and the three of them hit a run-down block near Golden Gate Park. No fancy setup, just a folding table, some sandwiches, a stack of water bottles. Keanu hauled the cooler, Laura handed out napkins, and Hannah called out to anyone passing by. "Hey, want some food?" At first it was slow, wary glances, shuffled steps. Then a guy in a frayed coat grabbed a sandwich, muttering thanks. A woman with a kid followed. Soon, a line formed, quiet but steady. Keanu watched, chest tight. These weren't fans or headlines. They were people, like he'd been that first day, hungry for more than food. Then came the moment that broke him open. A woman, thin, tired, maybe 30, stepped up with a little boy clinging to her leg. Hannah handed her a sandwich, all smiles. The woman took it, stared at it, and crumpled. Tears spilled fast, her voice cracking. "I haven't fed him in 2 days," she said, clutching the bread like it was gold. 2 days? Hannah froze, eyes wide, but Keanu felt it hit like a brick. He knew that kind of empty, had lived it, when grief stole everything but the air in his lungs. He stepped forward, slipping a wad of cash from his pocket into her hand. "I've lost it all too," he said, low so only she'd hear. "I get it." She looked up, stunned, then nodded, tears still falling. Hannah watched, quiet, but he saw her soak it in. That night, Keanu couldn't sleep. The woman's face stuck with him, her kids too. He'd given before, big checks to shelters, but this was different. He'd seen her, felt her desperation echo his own. Hannah's idea wasn't just sweet, it was a lifeline, and not just for them, for him too. Next time they set up, he told Laura, "we're going bigger." She smirked. "Hannah's rubbing off on you." He didn't argue. They hit up a corner store for supplies and word started spreading. A few locals pitched in, bread, fruit, a case of soda. Then a teacher brought her class. A guy in a suit dropped off coats. By the third handout, cars slowed to unload boxes, and people lingered to help. San Francisco caught wind fast. A news van rolled up one day, mic out, asking questions. Keanu tensed, old instincts kicking in, but Hannah jumped in. "We're just helping," she said, matter of fact. The reporter turned to him. "Keanu Reeves, right? What's this about?" He swallowed, then pointed at Hannah. It's her, she started it, with a sandwich. I'm just following her lead. The clip went viral, and soon donations poured in, cash, food, volunteers. Kids showed up with peanut butter jars, a bakery sent trays. Keanu posted online, voice steady, "This isn't me, it's a kid who cared enough to share. Join us." He meant it. Hannah was the spark, and he was damn proud to fan it. But it wasn't all smooth. Late one evening, after the crowd thinned, he sat with Hannah on the curb. She was quiet, picking at her sleeve. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, then looked up. "Why do some people hurt so much?" He exhaled, heavy. She'd seen it, the mom, the others, and it stuck. He owed her the truth. "I've hurt too," he said, voice rough. "Lost my girlfriend a long time ago. Our baby girl didn't make it either." Her eyes got big, but she didn't flinch. "That's why I was here that day, trying to figure out how to keep going. Then you showed up." He paused, throat tight. "You helped me more than you know." Hannah scooted closer, resting her head on his arm. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "but I'm glad you're my friend." Keanu's chest ached. Good ache, deep ache. He'd never told anyone that raw before, not like this. She didn't pity him, didn't gush, just listened, like she got it. "You're why this works," he said. "You make people feel seen." She smiled, small but real. "We both do." And she was right. They were a team now. Her heart, his hands, turning her sandwich into something that fed a whole city. The handouts grew, blocks lined up not just for food but for the feeling, hope maybe. A guy told Keanu, "First meal I didn't beg for in months." A teen said, "You're cool, man, not fake." Hannah hugged every kid who came, and Keanu shook hands, his old walls dust now. He'd hidden from the world, but she'd pulled him back, not with fame, but with this. One night, Laura joined them, watching the line. "You too," she said, shaking her head. "You're changing things." Keanu glanced at Hannah, grinning at a toddler. "She is," he corrected. "I'm just here for it." He'd felt it then. Purpose, sharp and clear, not the scripted kind he'd chased on set, but the messy, real kind. Hannah's kindness had saved him first, and now they were saving others. Together they'd turned whispers into roars, one sandwich at a time, and Keanu knew, watching her hand out another PB&J. He wasn't running anymore. He was building. Months rolled by, and the handouts weren't just handouts anymore. They were a movement. Keanu, Hannah, and Laura kept at it, feeding folks, passing out clothes, building something bigger than any of them had planned. The block near Golden Gate Park turned into a hub, people showing up not just to take, but to give. Cash piled up, volunteers multiplied, and one day a local offered an empty lot. "Make it permanent," he said. Keanu didn't hesitate, neither did Hannah. They poured everything into it, her ideas, his muscle, Laura's steady hand, and soon, a building rose. They called it the Kindness Haven, a spot in San Francisco where anyone could walk in and find food, a jacket, or just someone to listen. It wasn't fancy, but it was theirs. The opening day hit hard. A crowd gathered, hundreds, maybe more, faces they'd fed, kids they'd hugged, strangers who'd heard the story. Hannah stood on a crate, clutching a crumpled paper, her little voice cutting through the chatter. "I started with a sandwich," she said, steady but soft. "Just one. But now I know kindness can change the whole world." She looked out, eyes bright, and the crowd cheered, loud, raw, real. Keanu stood off to the side, hands shoved in his pockets, trying to keep it together. Her words weren't big or polished, but they sliced into him. His eyes burned, red and wet, and he didn't fight it. She'd done this, her, a 6-year-old with a peanut butter sandwich, and he'd never been prouder of anyone. He stepped up after her, voice rough from holding back. "She's right," he said, glancing at Hannah. "It's not about me or what I've done. It's about her, about all of you. This place, it's proof kindness isn't small, it's everything." The crowd roared again, and he let it wash over him. He'd spent years in spotlight glare, but this was different. No cameras flashing for fame, just people clapping for something real. The ribbon fell, doors opened, and folks streamed in, grabbing soup, laughing, crying. A guy Keanu recognized from the early days shook his hand, eyes shining. "You saved me," he said. Keanu shook his head. She did. Hannah just grinned, already passing out coats. That night, Keanu sat alone in the Haven's back room, staring at a stack of donated blankets. The noise had faded, but the weight of it all pressed in. He'd been a star, the Keanu Reeves, chased by fans, defined by scripts, but here he was just a guy who'd said yes to a kid's crazy idea. And it had changed him. He'd been running from Hollywood's grind, from the ghosts of his past, his girlfriend's crash, his daughter's still. He'd thought meaning was gone, buried with them. But Hannah had dug it up, handed it back with that first sandwich. Now, this place stood because of her, and he couldn't go back to the old life. Not anymore. He made a call, quiet, firm. "I'm stepping away," he told his agent. "For a while, maybe longer." The guy sputtered, "Movies, deals, millions on the line." But Keanu cut him off. "I've got something better here." He hung up, no second thoughts. Hollywood could wait. The Haven couldn't. He'd run it with Hannah and Laura, keep the doors open, the food coming, the hope alive. He wasn't a lone star drifting through anymore. He was part of this, part of them. The emptiness he'd carried for years, it wasn't gone, but it was lighter now, filled with something he hadn't had in forever. Purpose. Laura found him later, leaning in the doorway. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded, managing a half-smile. "Yeah, better than okay." She glanced around, pride in her eyes. "She's something, isn't she?" Keanu followed her gaze to Hannah, sorting cans with a volunteer. "She's everything," he said, voice thick. "Saved me first, then all this." Laura squeezed his shoulder. "You saved each other." He didn't argue. Couldn't. She was right, they'd built more than a center, they'd built a home, not just for the needy, but for him too. The next day, he and Hannah stood out front, watching people file in. A woman smiled, clutching a bag of groceries. A kid waved, wearing a coat they'd given him. Keanu felt Hannah's hand slip into his, small but steady. "We did good, huh?" she said. He looked down, her blue eyes meeting his. "Yeah, kid, we did." And they had proof. Right there in every grin, every full belly. Age didn't matter. Status. Kindness did. It had started with her, spread through him, and now it was everywhere. As they stood there, Keanu knew this was it, the real deal. Not a dother. He'd found his place, not in some script, but here, with a kid who'd shown him what mattered. Hannah squeezed his hand, and he squeezed back. The Haven wasn't just walls and food, it was a promise. Kindness could shift the world, one sandwich, one smile, one heart at a time, and he'd spend every day keeping it going. What do you think? Can one small act really ripple out like that? I say yes. Hannah and Keanu show us kindness isn't just a feel-good moment, it's a force, messy and real, that can rebuild lives, maybe even your own. I've seen it. A stranger's smile pulling me from a dark day, or a kid's honesty cutting through the noise. But maybe you disagree. Maybe you think the world's too broken for sandwiches to fix. Fair enough. It's not simple. Still, their story sticks with me. A little girl and a lost star, proving we're not as alone as we feel. Thanks for writing this journey with us. It means a lot. What's your take? Ever had a moment like theirs? Drop it in the comments, hit subscribe if it hit you too, and tell us where you're watching from. Let's keep talking.